Good afternoon and welcome to Los Angeles County Superior Court Building. My name is Mike Rost and I will be the mediator this afternoon. And please call me Mike throughout. I'd like to go ahead and find out how you'd like to be addressed, starting over here. You'd like to go by Joe, is that right? Great, Joe it is. And you, Terry, absolutely. We'll go ahead and call you Joe and call you Terry. All right, wonderful. Again, welcome. So just a little bit about me and how the mediation process is going to go. I've worked for about 25 years as a bank regulator, and I've had many interactions over the years with bankers, and in that time, we haven't always agreed, and we've had to work through conflicts and be professional, and sometimes, tempers have flared and whatnot, but for the most part, these discussions have been professional, and I've enjoyed that process, and that's why I'm moving into mediation and arbitration as a second career. I am a volunteer mediator, and I'm about a third of the way through a master's program at California State Dominguez Hills. It's in negotiation, conflict resolution, and peace building, and so it's just wonderful to go ahead and dive in and make a difference. So mediation is about having a productive conversation that may have, not been possible in the past. Despite your best efforts, it just hasn't worked, and you're at an impasse, a fork in the road, and you just some of you have filed lawsuits, and you know that lawsuits can cost a lot of money. And we know that they take a lot of time, that they're adversarial, and that you have to follow a very prescribed procedure. Mediation is more affordable. It may well be resolved within the next couple of hours with a binding agreement that you can enter into voluntarily, and that's something that you want to agree to and that you're going to live with, right? And my role is to facilitate that process, to facilitate a discussion to where we're not attacking one another, but instead we're working on resolving issues that matter to both of you. I am impartial, and I don't have any bias or stake in the outcome. I'm not going to make any judgments. I'm not going to make recommendations. I may ask questions that will steer you toward a solution that makes sense to both of you, but the key is that each of you are the decision makers. And before we go any further, I just want to make sure that each of you, Joe, you can decide to enter into an agreement that will be binding. Is that correct? Yes? Awesome. And Terry, is that true for you as well? That you can enter into this agreement and neither of you need anyone else's approval? I see you're both nodding. So, okay, that's great. And so I think the next thing to talk about is confidentiality. What's shared here stays here. That means we don't discuss this in the media and any form of social media. We don't discuss it in writing. We don't discuss it verbally. There's a couple exceptions. If one of you talks about threatening any of the disputants here or parties, I would have to report that. Or if one of you talks about breaking a law, I would have to report that as well. Other than that, everything's confidential, including the notes that each of us are going to take. I'm going to recommend that each of us take notes for the purposes of keeping this discussion on track and making sure we don't miss things. I know my memory isn't what it used to be, so I'll be making notes. Please don't take it as something's wrong. It's so that I can make sure that I've captured all the issues that are really important to both of you. And if we've missed anything as I go through these, we have a chance to go ahead and add that, to the agenda, if you will. So I plan to destroy the notes, and I would advise you to do the same when we're done with them, after an agreement's been entered into or the mediation session terminated. The next thing I'd like to do is cover ground rules. Ground rules are just that. It's so that we can have a safe and productive meeting. We can't have any threats of violence, and certainly no violence. You want to focus on your own thoughts and feelings. And the best way to do that is to use I statements. You say something like, I felt, or I was hurt. So you're owning the thoughts and feelings rather than pointing out and saying, he or she did this to me. Do you both get the distinction? Great. And can I have your agreement that you're going to do your best to abide by, not attacking the other person? You're going to wait for your turn, knowing that you're each going to get an equal opportunity to speak about matters that are important to you. Joe, I see you nodding, and Terry, I see you nodding. We'll go ahead and sign the confidentiality agreement. The ground rules aren't part of that per se, but I just want to make sure I had your agreement on that as well. The time, it may take a couple hours, for us to accomplish this. And I understand from both of you that you've budgeted that time, and that about an hour in, I will go ahead and call for a break, a chance to regroup. If at either time, I sense a need, or if you want to ask me something in private that might actually help facilitate the discussion, you're just not how to ask a certain thing. If I offer what that's called a caucus, if I offer it to one, and we do that, then I would offer that same opportunity to the other. I would meet with each of you privately, because again, we don't want to have any bias or perceived favoritism. If you want to consult an attorney, please let me know so that we can go ahead before an agreement signed, call for a recess for you to check in with your attorney. That's perfectly fine. You want to go ahead and enter into freely an agreement that's good for you and that you plan on honoring. Do either of you have any questions at this point? There are no dumb questions. I see that you look like you're ready to be engaged to begin. The way we're going to go ahead and do this is Joe's going to go ahead and flip a coin, and Terry's going to call it in the air. Does that sound fair? Great. We'll begin in just a sec.